destruction of the daughter of Zion. How many know that's what Yahweh's doing these days? He's reversing the destruction of the daughter of Zion. Well, this will blow your mind. According to the sages, on the 9th day of the 5th month, which is what? Today. Turn to your neighbor and say, today.
Today.
Let's try that again. Today.
Today.
The 9th day of the 5th month, which the Jews erroneously call Av. What does Av mean in Hebrew? It can either mean spring or father. Correct. In 1281 BCE, or thereabouts, Baruch Hashem Yahweh, some, of course, we know was more likely approximately 1400 BCE, the generation that didn't believe Yahweh was forbidden to enter the promised land, and they died in the wilderness. Remember that generation? The whole generation, out of the whole generation, how many entered the land, the promised land of Canaan? 2. And they were Yehoshua, son of Nun, and Caleb, son of Jephunneh. Hello? Caleb was from the tribe of Judah, and Joshua, Yehoshua, was from the tribe of Ephraim. Numbers 13. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. Bamidbar. 13. So the 2 witnesses of Yahweh have always been Judah and Ephraim. The whole generation died in unbelief, except the 2 witnesses who believed Yahweh, and they entered the land with the next generation, and Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't even enter the land. Are you with me?
Yes.
But our sages tell us that it was the 9th day of Av, or the 9th day of the 5th month, when the 12 spies returned, and 10 returned with an evil report, and all Israel fainted in their heart. And Yahweh said, go ahead and faint, and I'm going to drop dead, because you don't have the faith needed to take the land. I'm going to give you the land. All you need to do is march into the land. So if you don't have the faith to take the land, you might as well just lie down and die. For without faith, it is impossible to please Yahweh. For those who come to Yahweh must believe that He is, and is a rewarder of those who diligently seek Him. So our sages teach us that on this day, we believe the evil report of the 10 spies. Today, the 9th day of the 5th month. In 70 AD, the Second Temple, as we said many times, was destroyed. This day was prophesied by Yeshua our Moshiach. Turn to your neighbor and say, prophesy.
Prophesy.
Like your mouth. What did you guys drink this morning?
Prophesy.
Lamentation pills?
Yes.
Twoo. Be in the lamentation mode. Yeshua, this may not be a Moed, this may not be a Levitical feast or eternal feast, but Yeshua predicted it. And if Yeshua is Yahweh and Yeshua predicted it, it has some eternal validity and some eternal merit, does it not?
Yes.
Turn with me, please, to the book of Lucas. Lucas, Esrim ve'echad. Lucas, Esrim ve'echad, 21. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. Hallelujah. My. As you're turning to Luke 21, Baruch Hashem Yahweh. I just want to use the better of the 2 versions. This is better. Let's go to, I'm sorry about that. Let's go to go edit that from the tape. Matityahu 24:2. Matityahu 24:2. Not to mention, as Carrie was mentioning, not to mention, I'm only kidding, not to mention the home groups that play this stuff every Shabbat. They get the tapes, man, and they know everybody. They know the front row students, and they play this stuff every Shabbat. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. Matityahu 24 and verse 2. Matityahu, yeah, right. You got that in the conference? Right? Your Ted. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. Matityahu 24:2. Hallelujah. And Yahshua said to them, okay, I'm sorry, verse 1. Going out, Yahshua went away from the set-apart place, the temple. His taught ones, his Talmidim, came to him and said, look at the buildings of the set-apart place, to point them out. Yahshua said, do you not see all these buildings? Truly I say to you, not one even stone will be left upon another, which will not be thrown down. And Luke 21 says, because you did not know the day, the hour, and the time of your visitation. Jewish Israel missed the boat, as Ephraim Israel did 200 years earlier. Both y'all missed the boat. And when those two men were on the road to Emmaus, it was Yahshua who was drawing close to them with his Torah. He didn't have blonde hair and blue eyes. He had a beard and tzitzit, and he was a Jewish rabbi. And both men on the Emmaus road, neither of those two men recognized him. Those two men were the two houses of Israel. Because if Yeshua walked into a church, they throw him out for having long hair and sandals on the Lord's Day. That's why Revelation 3:20, Yeshua is knocking at the door and can't get into a lot of the congregations that say they're his, but they, you know what? Are they really his? So the two disciples on the Emmaus road, the two Talmidim, were a type of both houses, Judah and Ephraim, and which one recognized him as the true living resurrected Moshiach, the Rebbe from Nazareth? None. Because he was unknown to them. But in the breaking of bread, what happened? He became known. That's why I'm building the upper room. Because we're going to get to know each other as we break bread with each other. And we'll know the real Yeshua restored in our midst, not a substitute J-man who came to destroy Jews, destroy the Torah, and teach us how to cook our bacon. Both men were blind to who he was. He was withholding from them. But when did they come around? When were their eyes opened? When what? When he expounded to them all things in the Torah, all things in the Nevi'im, all things in the Ketuvim, that what? About himself. When Yeshua went to the Torah, both of them recognized him for who he was. So the thing that caused both houses to go into exile is the thing that causes both houses to return. A teshuvah, a full return to the eternal Torah of Yahweh. Are you with me? In 586 BCE, so Yeshua said in verse 2, Matthew 24:2. Not one stone will be left upon another in this beautiful house, and within 40 years that temple was destroyed. When? On the 9th day of the 5th month. In 586 BCE, Solomon's temple was burned. Mass deportation of the Jewish people to Babylon. And by the way, you know how many Jewish people returned from Babylon?
Handfuls.
About 40,000. And what happened to the rest of them? They died as Babylonians. And it's so hard for people to see that the believers in Yeshua are the 10 tribes. Why? Why is that so hard? The Jews went to Babylon, only 42,000 came back. So if the 10 tribes were more numerous, amen, and were a greater number, why is it so hard to believe that the 10 tribes became Gentiles and never came back? Because most Jews never came back. Out of all the Jews who went to Babylon, when the temple was destroyed in approximately 500 CE, most did not return. 42,000 returned. So what happened to Ephraim? Most of Ephraim never what? Never returned. Never returned. And died among the nations. In 130 CE, what does CE mean? Common era. Or as is commonly taught, AD, after death. 130 CE, Hadrian, listen to this, the Roman emperor entered Jerusalem, this is after the temple was destroyed, plowed Jerusalem, leveled Jerusalem, further fulfilling the prophecy of Matthew 24:2. That was a dual prophecy. See, some of y'all missed that when we read that the first time, just because I'm not shouting today. Too hot to shout. Turn to your neighbor and say, too hot to shout. So y'all missing that because you're in low gear. Okay, and I'm going to stay in low gear so I don't miss what some of us could be missing. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. Look at verse 2. Yahshua said to them, don't you see all these? Truly I say to you, not one stone will be left upon another at all, which shall not be thrown down. Now go back to verse 1. They were showing him, the buildings of Jerusalem, Yerushalayim, and the set-apart place. So the set-apart place was destroyed when? On the 9th day of the 5th month. When? In 70 CE. What about the rest of the buildings of Jerusalem? They weren't all destroyed in 70 CE. The temple was destroyed. What about all the buildings of Jerusalem? Now listen to this now. Uncanny. Uncanny. Completely uncanny, darling. Look at 130 CE. Hadrian, the Roman emperor, enters Jerusalem in the war against the Jews. One of many wars against the Jews, to eliminate the Jewish people in Judea. In the first Jewish war spoken about by Josephus Flavius, or what we know commonly known as Josephus, and destroys all the buildings that Yeshua said would be destroyed in Matthew 24:1 on the 9th day of the 5th month in 130 CE. If you think this is coincidence, there's a greater chance of you winning the Florida lottery, sweetheart, than all these things happening on the same day. So 50 years after the temple was destroyed, what happened? The buildings of Jerusalem were destroyed. What day? The 9th day of the 5th month. Now we fast forward 5 years to 135 CE. In 135 CE, the greatest false Moshiach in the history of the Jewish people, known as the Son of Light. What's his name? The Son of Light in Hebrew is, he's known as Bar Kokhba. How many have ever heard of Bar Kokhba? Simon says? How many have ever heard of Bar Kokhba? That's better. 3 people. We went from 1 to 3. Bar Kokhba was the false Messiah of choice. Rabbi Akiva, a leading scholar of the Tanaim, the Jewish sages, said this man, Bar Kokhba, is the Moshiach, and if we fight with him, he will destroy Roman oppression, and the Moshiach will come and set up his kingdom here on the earth. So Bar Kokhba, the son of light, appointed by Rabbi Akiva, all right, Rabbi Akiva, a famous learned rabbi, Bar Kokhba surrendered in the second revolt of Rome when the Jewish zealots were defeated. Judea in 135 CE became known as Palestine. Judea became known as Palestine, from whence we get the Palestinians. All right, but before it was Palestine, it was Judea. And you know who changed the name from Judea to Palestine? The conquering Romans, led by Hadrian. When do you think this messianic figure, Bar Kokhba, surrendered to the armies of Rome? Take a guess. Thank you. Thank you. How do we know that, Rabbi? We read Josephus. It's in Josephus. Read it. So Bar Kokhba surrendered on the 9th day of the 5th month in 135 CE. Now we fast forward a few hundred years to 805 CE or AD. The Jews are scattered to Europe because of they saw what happened to Ephraim. They did not repent. They went in the ways of her sister. And so Yahweh says that the treacherous Judah is worse than Ephraim because Judah had a chance to see what happened to Ephraim and didn't repent. Right. So Judah is worse. They had a chance to see what happened to their spiritual whoring sister. In 805 CE, the blood libel is introduced against Jewish Israel. The blood libel. Basically, the blood libel goes like this. This is 805 CE, about 700 years later. Whoa, it's good. Nothing happened on the 9th day of the 5th month for 700 years. But now things start accelerating. The blood libel first appeared in Europe, and the blood libel went something like this. Matter of fact, the blood libel was printed recently in a Saudi Arabian newspaper right around last Purim, which was last February. Okay? That was an interesting date. Last February. Purim. A Saudi editorial said, we know why these Jews have so much strength, so much koach, so much power. We know why. Because they eat the blood of Christians.
Wow.
They kill the Christians after midnight, though. Always after midnight. take the blood and they make the hamantash. Those cookies? Haman's ears? Those triangular cookies that are so expensive. $50 a dozen? Oh, I told my mama to stop buying that. She didn't stop buying that. I got addicted. Now I can't get rid of it. $50 a dozen. They go in at night and they look for Christian babies. And they make the blood and they put it in their hamantash and celebrate Purim. So the blood libel continues to this day in the Arab world. And they believe it because guess what? They don't get fair and balanced news from Fox. All right? There's not one democracy in the Arab world. Not one. Let's count all the democracies in the Arab world. Ready? 1, 2, 3. So they get news filtered big time through the Arab propaganda, which is anti-Zionist. If you're born again and you love Yeshua and you're a child of Israel, renewed covenant Israel, you are a Zionist. That's what a Zionist is. A Zionist believes that the people of Israel, which includes you, will return to the land of Israel. The Zionists are not the Jews. The Zionists are all those whose ancestors came from Zion. That's you. Turn to your neighbor and say, that's you. That's you. Turn to your neighbor and say, you look like a Zionist. You look like a Zionist. You look like a smart Zionist. You look like a Shabbat-keeping Zionist. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. So the blood libel first appears on the 9th day of the 5th month. It first appears in Europe in 805 CE on the 9th day of the 5th month. In 1187, we'll fast forward now 200 some odd years, 280 years. How many have ever heard of the Crusaders? The Holy Crusaders. There's only one problem. There was nothing holy about it.
That's for sure.
They came to the Holy Land to liberate it from the infidels in this case being the Jews and anybody who wasn't Katoliki. I'm not talking about good Catholics, I'm just talking about Catholics. Good Catholics went in the Second Crusade. Eileen always corrects me. We go to a restaurant. They're not just Catholic, they're good Catholic. Okay, sweetheart, I'm sorry. 1187, Crusaders marched to the Holy Land on the 9th day of the 5th month, put Jews, men, women, and children in Jerusalem, in the main synagogue of Jerusalem, lock the doors, and sing, "So sweet and 'tis so sweet to thy loving Jesus. We love you, Jesus." And we're burning the infidels. As men, women, and children scream for mercy on the 9th day of the 5th month in the Crusaders, and the day of the great synagogue fire in Jerusalem, where hundreds of women, children, and men were murdered on the 9th day of the 5th month. 1290, now we'll go forward only 100 years. Now this gets even more interesting than before. This is uncanny stuff, brothers and sisters. Hang in there with me, though. There's some incredible things at the end that are not factual, that are prophetic. Stay with me. 1290 CE. King Edward, this is 100 years after the First Crusade. King Edward I of England. How many have heard of a small place called England? I think that's where London is, right? London Bridges. King Edward I of England banishes, listen, banishes all Jews from England. They are given, oh, look at this grace, 3 months to leave England. How many of you know that the Jews were thrown out of England in 1290 CE? Okay, and boy, that's a little bit of a church grace there. 3 months to get out. Now you know why I hate the system. I love the people. We have to rescue the people. But I don't like the system. Look at 1290. King Edward I banishes Jews from England. of course with the sponsorship of the Church of England, are given 3 months to get out. The edict by King Edward I of England, 1290 CE, is given, officially released on the 9th day of the 5th month. This is not a joke. This is Yahweh's hand in history. This day, the 9th day of the 5th month. In 1352, some blood libel, the First Crusade, the banishment from England. Now France joins in the action. In 1352 CE, France decided that, hey, they don't like Jews either. And they expelled 40,000, telling their Jewish citizens to leave immediately. And that announcement was made on the 9th day of the 5th month. 1492, the infamous Spanish Inquisition. We think Columbus set out to discover America because he was bored and he was well financed. And he had 3 ships and he wanted to do some traveling with the Nina, Pinta, and Santa Maria. Wrong, Bubba. He was a Jew. He was a twice cursed Jew. He was a Jew and a believer. And he had to get out of the country real quick. And so he got out and found and refound America that the children of Israel, the 10 tribes, found 1,000 years earlier. Because if the children of Israel didn't come to America, would you explain to me the stone in New Mexico, the Las Lunas stone, which has the 10 Commandments written in Paleo-Hebrew? When Paleo-Hebrew was not used after the Tabernacle of David fell. When the Tabernacle of David fell, Paleo, or ancient Hebrew, was no longer in use. And yet in the United States, in New Mexico, we have a stone with the 10 Commandments into the stone, written into the stone in ancient Paleo-Hebrew, which is carbon dated at 800.